No success in the world can compensate for failure in the home. That's why Club Wealth was founded, to help driven, successful, and busy real estate agents like you double their business while building a strong, balanced home life. Join us each week as high-producing agents and team leaders share their stories and unpack the principles and systems they've used to double, triple, and even quadruple their business while enjoying greater quality of life. And now, here's the latest episode of Club Wealth TV.
Listing Agent Bootcamp top takeaways from two of the top coaches in the country. I've got coaches Angie, the bomb diggity Cody with me, as well as Coach Jeff. I know everything there is to know about technology more right here in the house right now. Let me tell you something. These two are super awesome, studious learners. They are going to share with us their biggest takeaways from our recent Listing Agent Bootcamp event that was held online, which was a first for us. We were supposed to be holding it in Phoenix, Arizona. And this darn COVID thing made it so we couldn't hold it in person. We had literally over 400, I think it was like 450 people registered for it to come to Phoenix. And last minute, within the last about 4 weeks before the event, we realized, hey, we're going to have to do this online. And so we had to build technology. This was the crazy part. Good thing we've got great coders on the team. We had to build out the technology to be able to hold up to 11 sessions concurrently on Zoom meetings so everybody could see each other live on Zoom in one location and be able to get from session to session very easily. It was crazy. I got to tell you, the technology team really came through. But we are here to get top takeaways from coaches Angie and Jeff. So coaches Angie and Jeff, talk to us. What were your biggest takeaways from Listing Agent Bootcamp 2020?
Go ahead, Angie. You want to go first?
Okay, so I really love Gabe Cordova's presentation. I love Gabe. I'm a big PowerPoint user. But I love the fact that he had said 3% of your leads are ready to buy now. Mm-hmm. What are you doing with the rest of them? Meaning, how are you nurturing them and how are you cultivating those relationships? And I think that so many agents out there will buy leads, they're not ready to buy, and then they just toss them in the corner or they just forget about them and they're not doing that nurture process. And if you think about only 3% is ready to buy, that doesn't seem like that much, but not everybody is ready to buy something at this time. So that was a huge takeaway for me. And, I did a strategy session for you yesterday, Michael, and this agent was a part-time agent. Mm-hmm. Last year, spending $5,000 on Zillow, only working the leads that were ready to buy now.
Wait, so, $5,000 in what period of time? A year?
A month.
$5,000 a month as a part-time agent?
Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
So
and only working the leads that were ready to buy now.
Yeah, it made me think about, Gabe said last week, that only 3% was ready to buy. What are you doing with the rest of them?
Dude, you should have offered to buy their leads. I would have been like, hey, look, I'll tell you what, give me all those leads that you're not going to follow up with, and I'll give you 10 cents a piece for them. Yeah, I'll go out and I'll crush it with a, holy cow, please tell me this person's coming into coaching. Oh my gosh. They need coaching.
She is. Yeah, she's full-time now. So, yeah.
Dude, she is sitting on a gold mine.
Oh, I know. If I was in Houston, I'd be buddying up with her.
Oh my gosh. I know. And watch this. All of our Houston clients are going to be calling right now. I got Justin and Sarah and Rick and all those guys are going to be calling you up. They're going to be like, who is this? I want to talk to her.
Yeah.
So, but that's awesome. And you're right about that. There's so much gold in those leads that we need to nurture. The problem is that most agents don't like to nurture them, and they don't. The reality is most agents will follow up once, maybe twice at most, but it takes 7 to 10 times before you get to that first contact, and 10 to 12 times, oftentimes before they'll actually commit to doing something with you, go see a house, sit down with you, have a conversation, that sort of thing. So good for you. That's awesome.
And they don't think about the nurturing process isn't just about following up. It's about inviting them to home buyer seminars. It's inviting them to client events, inviting them to events in the community. It's not always about, hey, are you ready to buy a house?
Well, one of the very powerful ways to do that, and there's lots of tools and techniques that we use to accomplish that, One of them is very simple. It's retargeting, right? It's making sure that we have them on our retargeted list or in our custom audience in Facebook, so that when we're running promotions for a buyer seminar, or even if we're just putting out great information out there, like, the 10 dumbest mistakes smart home buyers make when buying their first home or whatever, like that kind of stuff, right? Just having that in front of them, even if they don't click on it right now, even if they don't consume it right now, even if they don't do something with us right now, they see it. And just by seeing it over a long period of time, eventually you become the natural go-to person for them.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, what's funny is that's kind of like my takeaway too, is like going deep, right? Is I was telling my team this morning that all those panelists, they're like the epitome of what professionals are, right? They go deep with everything that they're doing. It's not going wide, right? They're not thinning it out. They're choosing one or two lanes and then going deep, right? Mm-hmm. And I attended like Mike Bernier's session, and he said 3 pillars, right? 3 pillars of your business as lead generation, and then go super deep. But what do? Most agents go either halfway or a quarter of the way down, and then we stop. So same with follow-up, right? They go 3 touches. I think that's the average, right? 3 touches before they quit.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right. Actually, I think it's just under 3.
Yeah, and it's 8. We have to get to 8 in order to get somewhere with them. So that was my big takeaway is, look, just go deep with whatever. Everything works. It's a matter of how deep you want to go in order to make it work.
So you're hitting on a very good point here. So if I could give everybody just one piece of advice, it would be, and we suggest this as part of coaching, right? When we do the $100,000 guarantee, right, where you'll double your income or make an extra $100,000 and we give you your money back, it's contingent upon once every quarter. So every 3 months, you need to add 1 new lead source, but it's not just add the lead source. You got to add the lead source. You got to do what Coach Jeff is saying here. You got to go deep on it, right? You've got to make sure you automate as much of it as humanly possible, delegate whatever you can delegate out of it, and eliminate the unnecessary steps, making sure that you've gone as deep as humanly possible with every single lead in that funnel, and then go bring on the next lead source. If you just did that, if that's literally all you did for the rest of your career, you're never going to worry about money.
Yeah, it's like, leads suck. For sale by owners suck. Expired suck. Well, I mean, somebody's been making them work.
Yeah. Why does a guy like Robert Slack, spend $12 million a year in online leads?
Yeah.
$12 million. Why does a guy like that spend that kind of money on online leads? Because he knows it works. So it's not, to your point, it's not that the leads don't work, it's that the agents don't work, right? They're not doing the things they need to do to capitalize on them. Okay, great stuff. Next takeaway.
It's funny, it's Robert Slack's, right? I literally had that on my list. I did the math on that. When he said that stat, I did the math, right? And would you trade $12 million for 24? Mm-hmm. And that was like the bare minimum of his ROI. It was just a basic 2 to 1. And I'm like, at that kind of scale, it made sense.
So, and here's what's interesting. So watch this. Let's assume for a second that his team is actually on a 50-50 split, all of them, right? And he's getting a 2 to 1 ROI on that particular lead source. Here's the problem. Basically, after he pays his team, he's breaking even, right? So where does he make his money? The repeat business, the referral business, the spin-off business, the sign calls, all the other stuff. And actually for him, he's not even doing listings, which is insane. Like literally, let me coach that guy for a little bit. But the reality though is that there's all that spin-off business that you make your money on. And so it does. Now, I'm not suggesting that everybody go out there and try and run on the super thin margins that he's running on right now. There's definitely other ways to do it that can be more profitable short-term. But I want to make sure that we don't underestimate the power of purchased leads.
Right.
So good stuff. Okay. Next takeaways. What do you got?
Okay. So, Jeff had mentioned how he spoke to his sales team, in a meeting, and I had mentioned about the 3%, what I just had talked about, but also mentioned what Eric Evie said in his class, Fanatical Prospecting. And I had just read the book, the first of the year. Yeah. And, Eric had mentioned that 97% of people will respond to a text message. And so before I'd even mentioned this to my sales team, I said, who's leaving voicemails, which I don't believe in too much. But so I mentioned to them 97% of people will respond to a text message. And then I also asked them, you know, we do a lot of BombBomb videos. And so the people on my team that are getting results from BombBomb videos, like what are they doing? And Eric had talked about how building relationships on trust. It's not always about sending the video about, hey, you ready to look at a house? It's, you know, you could, like Bree on my team, she was in a pickup line, you know, picking her kids up from daycare, you know, so she was relating to her lead. The dogs are barking in the background, so she's relating to the leads. She's trying to create that value and that trust by kind of showcasing, hey, I'm not perfect. I'm in the school pickup line, but I'm trying to reach out and get a connection with you. So I enjoy that part of his class.
That's awesome. Go ahead, Jeff. You're going to add to that?
Well, I was just going to say, it's like, again, he goes deep, right? It's like figuring out ways to succeed in everything that you do is like, what do you like about real estate? And how could you go deep with that in order to get more relationships and actually like, you know, who you work with? If you work with somebody in your same demographic and you target that group, you're going to probably like your job more and want to do it more. And it's going to give you more energy and motivation to keep going, right?
And that brings, you know, up the point of making sure that we're authentic with what we do as well, right? Don't try and be somebody you're not. Be who you are, and you'll attract people that are naturally a better fit for you. You know, when your authentic actions are congruent with your beliefs, your values, your morals, and just your way of being, guess what? That's who you attract. So yeah, I love that. Great.
And one thing I was going to add too is I get a lot out of these conferences. I get out what is in between the breakouts. And so I was going to mention that I love the open hallway. Like, I thought that touch was incredibly powerful, right? Is you got to experience conversations that you normally wouldn't have had in an online setting.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I'm really glad to hear that feedback, because I wasn't sure how that was going to be received. It was very important to me to make this online event feel as close to an in-person event as humanly possible, without the expense and the danger. I guess that's the wrong word, but you know what I'm saying. Like, I mean, it's just without being able to do an in-person event. And so doing this hallway was the best way we could think to kind of get people where they could go and they could just have whatever conversations. That's why I didn't spend time in the hallway. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't dominating the conversation. And so it sounds like there was some good stuff happening there. What about the vendor booths? Because that was kind of part of that whole thing too, is making sure that people could themselves choose between, I want to go to the hallway or I want to go to the vendor booths and I want to be able to talk with someone live. Was that helpful, do you feel, or was there anything you would change there?
I thought the vendor booths were extremely helpful because it was like you were in an actual class. You weren't just going up to their booth and they were giving you information. They were actually showing you their systems, and they were very interactive. I thought it was great. And Frank from Viral Marketing was impressed with what you pulled off, and he wanted to make sure I told you that.
He was pretty excited about it. He was like, man, I couldn't believe it. I had, because in an in-person setting, they can't really do a demo with people because you don't have 12 people sitting there at the same time watching your demo. And so I think for the vendor standpoint, I think that was really helpful for them. But what I'm hearing from you is it was equally helpful from an attendee or participant standpoint, because you could go in and you got really solid information about that vendor and their product offering, which is, it's interesting you bring that up, because when we do Marketing and Technology Summit, which is going to be our very first one here in July 15th and 16th. In fact, I'm hoping that you two are going to be very involved in that. Angie, of course, on the marketing side, and Jeff, of course, on the technology side. But I'm really anxious to see how that goes, because we want to create kind of that same opportunity. What we want to do is we want to say, okay, cell phone companies, right? So every hour we'll have different breakouts, right? So every hour we'll have, or every 45 minutes or however often, right? As we break this down, we'll have, like, let's say we have all the different cell phone companies there. We won't put them all in the same time slot. We'll put them in so each time slot will have 10 different vendor categories. So that, like, if your mission in life is, hey, I need to find a new CRM. Okay, great. This hour you'll have the opportunity to learn from this CRM. The next hour you'll learn about this CRM. The next hour, or if you want to do a different one, let's say you want to do cell phone companies. You can do the same thing there, or lead generation for buyers, lead generation for all that kind of stuff. We want to break it up so that there's these tracks, and you don't have to stick to a track. You can bounce from track to track. But what it will do is it will get you exposure to a lot of the stuff that's happening out there, as well as having classes on all of these too. So like Angie, you might do a marketing class on how you're crushing it with listings to leads, for example. Jeff, you might do a class on, how you're integrating multiple technologies, which I know you're really big on. You've got a lot of that going on. Anyway, very excited about that. So key takeaways. Let's get back to takeaways.
Just to add with the vendor boost, I love that you can share the screens. And when we talk about listing presentations now in the virtual space, right, is sharing your screen almost is more impressive, because locking somebody down to look at your screen and see your marketing is a little clunky. It's a little awkward. But in this environment, it's you actually get more out of it. And I got out of the tier 3 masterminds, right? All these masterminds were probably the most powerful masterminds I could be a part of, right? Because we got to be able to see and integrate and open up their screens, work through their flows and ask questions. It was almost like a workshop instead of a mastermind. And that was crazy powerful. Crazy.
Well, okay, so you just gave me an idea that I think we're going to have to implement at BSM in November, which is in California. I think what we're going to see in Carlsbad, California. I think what we'll do there, what if in the masterminds, what if we concurrent to the masterminds, not open to anybody that's not physically there. You got to be physically there to have the ability to log into this. But what if we have a Zoom session running while we're there, so that from any position around the table, somebody could easily share their screen to the projected screen in the room, and you guys could talk about things. Would that help?
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool. Mm-hmm.
Done. That's easy. I can make that happen tomorrow. Oh man, you guys just gave me a great idea. I got to write that down. Hold on. Okay, so give me another takeaway while I'm writing that one down.
Okay, so I absolutely love David Steitz's listing presentation, along with the panel for the objection handlers. I work more with sellers, so I was able to see some holes in my listing presentation. But my big takeaway with David was he's just confident. He acts as if, like you would have always told us to do, act as if you're going to get that listing appointment. And then part of that was what Gabe had done when he was on that panel for the objections, is he showed his CRM about all the buyer leads, when you're on a listing appointment. And I had totally forgot about doing that. And I remember probably about a year ago, one of my agents was on a listing appointment and she did the exact same thing Gabe did. And I was like, oh my God, I totally forgot we need to be doing that. So it was two of those. It was Gabe and David's were really good for me.
I love that. They did pretty good in that listing agent death match too.
Oh my God, that was awesome.
That was a great session.
There's a lesson in scripts. Total lesson in scripts. My guys were watching that. They were saying it's a total lesson in scripts.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gotta get good with your scripts.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, one of the things we're working on. We just published our second and third book during the event, both of which became national bestsellers during.
That's exciting.
Right, I was pretty excited about that. So we're 3 for 3. 3 out of the 3 books that we've published so far have been national bestsellers on multiple lists. I think we've been number 1 on, I think, a total of 5 or 6 different Amazon lists, and in the top 5 in 10. It's some crazy number that we've been in the top 5 in. But that being said, so that's actually one of our books that we have coming up, is we're doing a scripts book. So for those of you, and specifically for Coach Jeff and Coach Angie, if there are specific scripts that you would like us to provide, hey, how do we handle commission objections, pricing concerns, those kinds of things, get those over to me. Just private message those to me and I'll add them to the list. But we're literally coming out with a book that will be literally just chock full of multiple scripts to handle each objection. So for a price objection, we'll have 4 or 5 different scripts that you can memorize to handle that one particular objection. We'll do that with all these. So it's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, and I guess, when I listen to that too, is the formula. They all have the same kind of solid formula,
mm-hmm.
right? Is affirm, repeat, embedded command, and then tie down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a lot of them are doing the what do we call it? ARP, right? Acknowledge, repeat, pivot.
Mm-hmm.
Great stuff. Acknowledge, respond, pivot. So that being said, let's go to the next takeaway. What else? Give me one more takeaway from each of you that you felt like you got out of the event and that meant something to you that you'll implement in your business.
Okay, mine was Jeff Fitzer on video. And a lot of times you get realtors get nervous, like, okay, how do I start? How do I end? What do I say? And he was like, start with that hook, get your intro, get your story, get your call to action. And it was just that basic, 4 steps. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. Now I feel a little bit more confident on how I'm going to start my videos.
Yeah.
Love it. That's great. And you're right about that. It's unfortunately, most people do it backwards. They start with the intro before the hook, right? Mm-hmm. You got to start with that hook. You got to tell people immediately, this is why you want to listen to this. Then you can do the intro. Then you can go into the full story. Then you can do your call to action. So I love it. It's great stuff. Great takeaway. Jeff?
Well, and we talked on my team this morning. We were asking this question, right, of like what their takeaways as well. And the farming from Christy Lundy, we thought was incredibly powerful. She was, the Facebook groups that she's starting to do, and the amount of, it was like she took it to another level. And so it really showed that, like, you can't just send a mailer every month and accept results, right? Mm-hmm. It was, you got to do it consistently over a long period of time, right, in order to get something out of return. But the ROIs on that stuff were phenomenal, as long as you can see it through. And so a huge takeaway for the stuff that I wrote down was just pick a couple things and just go deep with them. I mean, again, it's really simple. One thing that I do with all the conferences that I attend is I go with a list of questions that I have to get answered, right? So now I'm going to, even this online one was purposeful. So I'm attending things or going to the people that I need to go to in order to get my questions answered, right? So I have 10 to 15 questions with every time. And just like you said, with CRMs or cell phone companies, you go with a purpose instead of consuming it all and expecting to take action on all of that. You can't take action on all that. Right?
No, but then that's the next piece, right? So first you go with your questions ahead of time. Then as you come out of the event, then you have to come out of the event saying, okay, what is the one thing I'm going to implement no matter what? Yeah. And then when I get that done, what's the next thing? You come up with your top 3 to 5 things that no matter what you're going to implement in your business. You put them in order and you just start with the first one. You get that done. And until you get that done, you don't even think about the other 4. Right. Then you go to the next one. You get that done. And until you get that done, you don't even think about the other 3. And that's it. By the time you get to the last, by the time you get to number 4 or 5, it's time for the next event. You go to the next event and you get a whole new take on stuff. And, things have changed a little bit. Things have evolved, and you come up with an even better spin on what you were going to do. And you come with a renewed, not only enthusiasm for, but understanding of exactly what and how you need to implement things and how important they are. You come up with a renewed sense of the priorities, if you will.
Light bulb moment, right? It's a different light bulb moment. It's the same kind of content you heard 6 months ago, but it lit a bulb that you didn't light before.
And it's interesting you say that, because so many people, they'll say something like, and I say so many, not the ones that are really successful never say this, but those that struggle oftentimes will say something like, oh, but I've heard it all before. Okay, but you didn't do it. If you heard it all before, why didn't you freaking do it?
Yeah.
Right. And if you have all the answers, why aren't you the number 1 agent in the country? Right. Because that's not how life works. Right. I had one of my clients was the vice president of Jack in the Box. He was actually going to become the new CEO of Jack in the Box. Ended up being the CEO of the Coffee Bean and Tea Leaf. Not sure if you've ever heard of that place. Real good guy. Jeff is his name. And I was having a conversation with Jeff one day, and he says, Michael, when I was the CEO or the VP of Jack in the Box, actually, was he CEO at the time? I can't remember. But he was VP or CEO of Jack in the Box. And he said, I could take my entire operations manual. I could be sitting in first class next to the CEO of Burger King. And I could get up off the plane. I could leave my entire operations manual, my strategic plan for the coming year on the seat, get up, walk away. And I'm not worried at all about them copying it or doing anything with it. Because first of all, he'd have to read it, which most people won't do. Second of all, you'd have to implement it, which even fewer do. And third of all, they'd have to implement it properly. And it's like, the whole point is you guys, we need repetition for a reason. We need to be at these events for a reason. And it's actually, there's a ton of reasons why we need to be at these events. In fact, give me one or two reasons, each of you, why it's imperative to be, whether it be the online event that we just did or whether it be the in-person events. Give me a reason or two why you must be at these events every time.
Relationships, for sure. Right.
just
Solidifying relationships. I mean, perspectives, two heads are better than one. You don't know all the answers. And if you have good relations with people, then you're going to have a better result for your own business, for sure.
Yeah. And it's that brainstorming and swapping ideas. Like, I might be doing something this way and Susie's doing it another way, and we can combine the way we're doing it. Oh, well, that'll work even better for us. So that's what I like, the masterminds and the networking.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll add, get in a bigger fish pond. If you're in too small of a pond, it's easy to get big, right? And you need someone always bigger than you.
Yeah.
I've got a client right now I get to have a conversation with here in a couple of days that they're the big fish in their little pond. And I won't say where they're from, but I don't want to give away who it is, but they're not going to be a Club Wealth coaching client very, very much longer. And the reason is they're just not coachable because they've got all the answers, because they don't really want to change, because because by golly, they do a couple hundred transactions a year. So they must have all the answers. And it's like, no, like you're just barely getting started. And don't get me wrong. I don't mean to belittle anyone's production. I don't want anybody watching this to think, well, if I'm only doing 50 transactions a year, Michael doesn't care about me. That's not true. I do. I care about you guys. I want to help you grow regardless of where they're at. Whether you're going from brand new agent to your first 25, or from going from 25 to 75, or from 75 to 150, or from 150 to 400. We've got clients that are doing 500, 600, 1,000, 3,000 transactions a year. Regardless of where you're at, we want to help you get to that next level. Here's the key. There's always a next level, right? You're never freaking there, and that's okay. Enjoy the journey. The joy is in the journey. And that's what we've got to understand is if we're going to really go down this path, if we're really going to go down the path of being truly successful and achieving significance in our lives and eventually developing a legacy that we leave behind us, it starts with being humble. It starts with being coachable. It starts with being willing to learn from others. It starts by understanding that, look, the people in my local market, they're not the big thinkers. It's the people all over the country that I need to start getting to know. In fact, all over the world that I need to start getting to know that are doing things that nobody in my market's even thought of before. Yeah. It's the people even in other industries that are doing things that could be applied in our industry that nobody's even thinking of right now. How do we get to those ideas? How do we implement those things? How do we become true innovators in real estate? Well, that's how you got to be at these events. You got to get to know people.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly though, too, right? It's get uncomfortable. If you want to get to another level, even if it's a smaller level, just start being uncomfortable. And I think Ron has mentioned this many times too, is you got to be the person before you have what that person has, right? So you got to be it, and then you got to do it, and then you get it.
Yeah.
Right. Dude, that's a great presentation. Did you go to that one at the event?
No, because I mean, him and I have talked about that for.
Oh yeah.
Be do have is like, for me, it's what it is. Okay, if I want to emulate what that person does, right, and then do it, and then all of a sudden you just attract it.
You're totally right about that. It's interesting, people say, oh, well, when I'm this, then I'll that. No, that's not how it works. You got to choose to be that right now, right? And it's, we talk about acting as if, right? If I want to be a better person, every day I get to wake up, if I want to have what so-and-so has, let's say I want to have a better family life, because so-and-so has this great family life. Well, that's great. You can have that, but it doesn't start by going out and getting it. It doesn't start by doing this to get that. It starts by in here, I got to be that. Yeah. I got to be the kind of person it takes to get that. We talk about this when people occasionally come to me and say, okay, Michael, I'm ready to find my soulmate. How do I do this? And I put them through an exercise on how to find your right match. And so far I'm batting 1,000. Everybody I've done this with that's really gone through it with me has ended up marrying their soulmate, and they're all still married to that same person to this day, I might add. But the exercise,
I didn't know you were a matchmaker.
Years ago, I think.
By accident, right? It just, but the formula works, right? What I'll do is I'll say to the person who's ready to find their mate, I'll say, all right, well, write down on a piece of paper for me right now the 10 things that you expect in the perfect spouse. What do you expect? And then they'll write down those 10 things and they'll come back and, I want this, and I want that, and they gotta have this, and they gotta have that, and they gotta have this, and they got, okay, great. All right, that's good. All right. Now, write down the 10 things they're gonna expect in a spouse. What is that person gonna expect in their spouse? Whoa. They didn't expect to go there, right? So all of a sudden they're like, oh my gosh, okay. So then they write down the 10 things and then we come back, we talk about it, and we say, okay, so now go be that. And then I give them some other exercises on the actual, finding the person, that sort of thing. But they got to first focus on being that person that the spouse they want would expect. And as they start to do that, guess what happens? Opportunities materialize. Right? Dates happen, connections are made. I mean, but it's all because inside your head first, you've got to become that person that they would want to be with.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. And same with agents, even in business, right? Like, tell me the definition in your mind of the agent and what their behaviors are that closes 100 deals a year, 50 deals a year, whatever. Give me that definition.
Yep.
Right? And then just go be that.
That's literally it. Like, you've got to, like, what are the habits that a 500 transaction a year producer has? What are their daily habits?
Right.
Great. Go do that. Emulate.
And that's why it's important to be at these events, because you get to talk to those people that are doing 500 transactions.
Yeah, and what's interesting is not only do you get to see what they do to get there, but and what they have because they're there, but you actually get to see who they are. You get to learn what makes them tick inside, and that's where it all starts. Napoleon Hill says, right? You got to begin with the end in mind, and what the mind can conceive and believe it can achieve. But until you can conceptualize it, and until you can convince yourself that you are that, you won't believe that you're worthy of it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And when you got a group of people here that are so giving and abundant mentality, that I mean, I don't know, every single coach, every single person I've come in contact with is willing to open their book up and tell me everything that they wanted to do or how they were successful. And I didn't find that with any other organization. Right?
You're very blessed to have wonderful people in Club Alpha. We have just over 70 coaches now. And I can tell you without exception, every single one of them would sit down with anybody, regardless of your production level, regardless of whether or not you can do anything for them. Every one of them is the kind of person that would sit down with you and really take the time to help you with whatever it is you got going on.
Yeah, there's lots of real estate transactions every single year, right? Yeah. You can go get your piece and still be abundant.
Yeah.
That's right. Oh yeah, you're totally right about that. There's more than enough out there for everybody. Well, that said, we are about out of time. So let's do this. Any parting thoughts from either one of you on Listing Agent Bootcamp or any other Club Wealth events or anything for that matter? Any other thoughts?
Every one of them has gotten exponentially better and better and better. And this one has gotten to a level of like, wow, you had I think over 600 people that jumped in at one point.
It was crazy.
I was blown away by that and how smooth it was and how really effective it was. Right. So, kudos. Well done.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
And I just feel like as quickly as you put this online event together, just really shows how much you care and your staff cares and how you all want to help others succeed.
Yeah.
I appreciate that a lot, Coach Angie. We've got some wonderful people on the team and they worked day and night tirelessly. No joke. I mean, they literally, I had people on the team working literally 15 to as many as 18 hours a day for 4 weeks trying to pull it all together. And I am super grateful for them. They really brought it. They made it happen. And I got the easy job, right? I just got to tell them what I wanted done. They got to go figure it out.
You didn't lose your voice this year either, right?
Right. Well, it was a lot easier. Yeah, actually, this was definitely for a lot of reasons. It was great. It's funny because I was driving home because I went down to the office because there's nobody down there, right? So, and we have fiber optic internet down there. So I went and I broadcast from the office, and I was driving back to my house, and I contacted Coach Ron Anderson, and I said, man, what's really neat about this is I'm on my way home from a major event, biggest one we've ever held, and I'll be home in 15 minutes. Normally I have to drive that trailer back.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I mean, it's 15 minutes beats 3 days all day long. It was great. So anyway, that said, the three of us need to get on a coach's call. So I really appreciate you guys. And so and I see that you guys have your location on there. For those of you that are watching, do me a favor. If you haven't done so already, connect with coaches Jeff and Angie here. If you've got a referral in Knoxville, Coach Angie will take great care of them. I know she will. We've referred people to her. I've seen a lot of people in Club Wealth refer people to her, and I've only heard great feedback. And same goes for Jeff in Denver, Colorado. I've only heard great feedback from the people that have referred clients to either one of them. So next time you guys have a referral in either of their areas, think of them. I know they'll take great care of your referrals. They'll definitely pay your referral fee. You won't have to chase them down for your fee. They're very honest. They'll get you taken care of. And they're closers. They'll close these folks in a very nice way that'll have those people think for referring them to them. Also, shout out to our sponsor, Wise Hire. For those of you that aren't already using them, you're crazy. You need to be. Freaking Wise Hire is fantastic. It's kind of one of those things where it's a set it and forget it. It's like Ron Popeil and the what is it, the rotisserie grill or whatever.
Yeah.
Set it and forget it, right?
Yep, set it and forget it.
It'll bring you business. It'll bring you agents. It'll bring you team members. You'll want to do other things also. But Wise Hire works, man. We use it in-house for Club Wealth when we're hiring, and we get people every year. We get different, people come in, and you think about, for every agent you bring onto your team, you think about what that means from a monetary standpoint. One agent pays for Wise Hire for 3 years or more. So definitely give them check out at clubwealth.com/WIZEHIRE. Again, clubwealth.com/Wise Hire. Coaches Angie and Jeff, thank you so much for being on today. I appreciate you guys. Be on the coach.